Judges, imagine a world where artificial intelligence makes decisions about our healthcare, our safety, and even our jobs. Decisions that could impact our lives in ways we've never thought before. Now, consider who could control this powerful technology. Should it be private companies seeking profit, or should it be governments accountable to the people? Today, as a Prime Minister, me and my team firmly support the motion of only allowing AI research and development to be done by government-owned or government-funded entities. In this speech, I will be presenting my team's arguments. Our three arguments are public interest and ethical oversight, national security, and equitable access. First, public interest and ethical oversight. Artificial intelligence has the potential to transform our lives in many ways, from improving healthcare to making our cities smarter. However, with great power comes great responsibility. When private companies develop AI, they often prioritize profits over people. For example, a company might create an AI that can track our online behavior to sell us more products. But what if that information is misused and breach our privacy? Government-funded research ensures that ethical guidelines are in place. They can focus on developing AI technologies that can benefit everyone, such as tools for education or healthcare. Our opponents might argue that private companies are also capable of ethical AI development. However, this is not valid because companies often lack the accountability that governments and titles have. When governments are involved, there is oversight from multiple stakeholders, including the public. The accountability helps ensure that the focus remains on public welfare rather than corporate profits. Secondly, let's consider national security. AI technology have far-reaching implications for our safety and our security. Innovative advancements in AI can be used for both good and bad purposes. For instance, AI can help us detect threats or cyber attacks faster than ever before. However, if private companies control these technologies, there is a risk that they could be misused or fall into the wrong hands. By allowing only government entities to conduct AI research, we can maintain control over these critical technologies and ensure that they are used to protect our country and its citizens. Lastly, we must address the issue of equitable access and reducing inequality. In today's world, we see a significant divide between those who have access to the latest technologies and those who do not. Private companies often develop AI systems that only benefit a small amount of people, primarily those who can afford them. This can lead to greater inequality in society. By centralizing AI research within government-funded organizations, we can ensure that the benefits of AI are shared more fairly. Our opponents may argue that competition among private entities drives innovation, benefiting society as a whole. However, this is not valid because unchecked competition can also lead to monopolies and unequal access to technology. When the government leads AI development, it can focus on underserved communities. For example, AI could be used to improve public transportation or enhance educational resources for schools in low-income areas. In conclusion, I strongly believe that AI research and development should only be conducted by government-owned or government-funded entities. This approach prioritizes public interest and ethical oversight, enhances national security, and promotes equitable access to technology. By placing the power of AI in the hands of our governments, we can ensure that these powerful tools are used for the greater good, benefiting all of society rather than just a select few. Thank you.
In the economy, competition can be the fuel, the driving force of companies and corporations to improve and develop their creations and innovations. For instance, the smartphone industry between Samsung, Apple, and Google is a prime example of continuous technological innovations, motivating them for better cameras, efficient processors, and improved battery durability. Yet the government is trying to destroy the very essence of this ongoing race for development, handing the opportunities to the government, stifling creativity, lessening the efficiency, and suppressing our freedom. With the prior permission of the chair, good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. As the leader of opposition willing to justify our stand and brings the victory, meaning to the course of three main arguments: justice, public safety, and the risk of coercion. For the clarity of the speech, we wish to define some of the keywords as the motion follows. AI research and development includes things such as basic research, applied research, and product development for the purpose of learning, problem solving, and development. And government-owned entities are institutes or agency directly owned or operated by the states. And government-funded indicates quasi-public organizations that receive the majority of their budget from the government. Now, the main stakeholders of this issue are the government, citizens, and private corporations, companies, etc. We must consider that by removing the competition for privatized companies, the development of AI will slow down, as well as removing the job for those who work in these companies. Our core value of this debate is that innovation is essential for meaningful development. A slippery slope of brain drain will happen, which causes an imbalance between countries and forces development to shut down in some countries. Now, to clarify the doubts raised by the previous speaker, I'd like to refute what she has claimed. She has tried to persuade you by saying that the government will have the best interests for the ethical and transparent management because they want the public to develop. However, many governments have been accused of misusing technology for surveillance, censorship, and oppression, such as the Massachusetts, where there were cameras installed by the police to monitor the citizens. Therefore, this makes this a mutual harm for both sides, not just ours. Also, they have tried to say, we also need to say that the private companies have more resources and expertise than the government, meaning they can innovate and develop AI more efficiently and securely. The government lack the ability to manage such advanced technology safely, as there are a risk of coercion and of favor towards one side. Now, moving on to my analysis, it will stifle the innovation and creativity of the companies. To be specific, by having competition with other companies, they will be incentivized to create even more valuable, unique ideas for their products or services. Ladies and gentlemen, without the motivation from the racing companies that encourages competition and speeds up innovation, it ramifies and opens a broader. Yes, ma'am.
By enforcing competition, how does the opposition side plan to prevent the rise of private monopolies?
Well, obviously, even if we give this hand to government, as I will explain in my second argument, there will be a brain drain also monopolizing what a specific country over another. Continuing, for instance, historically, countless major technological advances such as personal computing, internet, smartphones involve public and private partnership or purely private ventures. Also, without private R&D, smaller startups and entrepreneurs might be locked out, stifling economic growth and job creation. SpaceX also recently developed a way to save billions of dollars by landing the most expensive part of their rockets. This couldn't have happened without the efforts to profit the company. This motivation can help the government in various ways, and this proves that we have the exclusive benefit of creativity and efficient development. Now, my second argument is that there will be a slippery slope of brain drain happening, where specialized people transfer to different higher-paying countries. Imagine you have two choices, a high-paying wage from a different country, and one low-paying job that sparks no competition. You'll be incentivized for more profit and money, which a willing, productive, and developed country would try to attract and allure. There's no guarantee at all that every country will be able to properly function and develop the technology. This will create a centralized power to one country, which is lopsided, such as Nazi Germany, where they had the overpowering other countries. Now, underdeveloped countries in debt or poor environments may not be able to afford high budgets, and this will create imbalance and inevitably lead to marginalized brain drain. If the government wants to continue with this debate, they have the prerequisite burden to prove how they will effectively address this brain drain that will inevitably happen in their case. Therefore, the motion must fall.
The nature of developing AI is that it needs to be safe and equal. Incredibly proud to propose two things I will do in this speech. Firstly, some rebuttals to the opposition side, and secondly, some rebuilding on my teammate's point. Firstly, rebuttals. Few things I want to point out about the opposition case. The first thing I want to point out on the opposition bench is about their argument on low efficiency. However, Judge, we want to emphasize here that we can have alternative to prevent that from happening. This may look like we funding another private company and looking over them in order to get a win-win situation where we both have secure development but also have high efficiency. Now, why does our opponents actually get that at the end of the day? This is because even if opposition side have a higher efficiency than us, they do not have a secure development than us, because government is definitely more secure than private companies who are not controlled by anyone, right? Now, what does this actually look like? This looks like the American government funding Tesla in order to develop an AI driving together. This may also look like the American government funding ChatGPT Baidu in order to create a better version of ChatGPT. This may also look like China funding Baidu to create a better AI. The second thing I want to point out on the opposition side is on their point about losing jobs of people who are developing AI in these companies. George, we want to emphasize here that even in our opponent's best case scenario, where people actually lose jobs, these people still can go to other companies that also develop AI. Now, why is this likely? This is because since we need to develop better AI, we need more people to investigate different things, right? Hence, all of these harms will not happen at the end of the debate. Yes.
You have mentioned that these people will go to other companies, but our argument is literally because these people lose their jobs, they'll go to other countries to work and will cause a brain drain.
I said that they will go to other companies, not countries, so I do not understand your POI. Third point about private companies, our opponents' argument on private companies being very rich. We have two responses to that. A, that government might do a better job because none of us have actually seen how a government is doing this AI. But B, George, just as what I've said in my first rebuttal, we have alternatives to make sure to actually let these private companies become government-funded companies. Hence, we still get that right now. Secondly, rebuilding on my teammate's point. George, let's first look at what our side give you to now. A, that we have more equal world. B, that our side creates a more safer world. And C, that only our side proves the real burden to this debate. Now, why do we still win our opponents if they have the same amount of benefit that we do? The first thing to note here is that only our side actually provides the whole development a safe context. This is because AI is something that is not ethical to now, right? Meaning that AI is still something that we do not know about and something that have probability of even ruling the world at the end of the day, right? And in this school, many companies, due to their will of creating something that will shock the entire world, they may use ways that are legal or not. But not illegal or down, but if the government is doing it, the risk of all of these things mentioned above will be extremely low to zero. Why is this true? This is because government, due to their wants to reputation, will not risk it, hence providing a less risky plan compared to private companies, as on the opposite side of the house. Moreover, all of the reasoning stated above are based on an assumption where opposite side actually gets the benefit we have, which it will never get in the status quo. Now, what are the harms that opposite side believe we have? Now, what are the harms the opposite side believe we have? Firstly, they believe that we have low efficiency. However, we want to emphasize here that all of these benefits are symmetric. This is because they are using the government to develop, right? Hence, all of these risks that government have and all of these harms that government have will always happen on the opposite side of the house. And note here that this is only in the opposite side's best case scenario again. Given that, I think there's a very clear thing to point out about the entire debate, which is that only on our side of the house, we actually have and gives the incentive of safely and successfully developing AI. Hence, this is the clearest proposition ballot ever.
My speech, I would like to repeat a quote from what the proposition used, a quote that is arguably one of the most famous quotes from a movie. With great power comes great responsibility. AI is certainly a great power, and we, the opposition, challenge the notion that the government would be able to take great responsibility in this case. Judge, when it comes to AI, companies are without question more skilled and experienced in handling the responsibility and actually being able to develop it rather than the government. While we admire the government's intentions, we, the opposition, do not feel safe in relying solely on our governments to determine our fate and feel that it would heavily marginalize our world, with some countries accepting this policy and some countries not. So with AI as a big part of our future, Judge, we do not want to risk an exponentially growing slippery slope of a brain drain, leading to new global superpowers even stronger than before. So with that note on framing, allow me to address the previous speaker's points and rebuild our stance. So the first point, they mentioned that the government is way more safer than the companies, but there is no valid proof that they mentioned that the government is indeed more safe than the companies, because the government has actually been known to manipulate the people and been charged with corruption and election fraud with this technology. And the only clear metric we have right now is that actually companies are more experienced to handle the responsibility. So without clear evidence, this point fails. Moving on, they said that our second argument is flawed because the people will go to other companies, not other countries. However, this is so flawed because the one country has the same policy, but others country don't. For example, if there are two companies in America, and America has banned the use of AI from except for government-funded companies, then that every company in that country will have the same policy, but other countries like Russia will not, and this will lead to a brain drain, leading to more stronger global superpowers. So we fear that they have misunderstand our second argument. Their third with that, that's our note on rebuilding. And for the rebuttal about their equitable access, it is natural that some people might not afford it. Current AI platforms that do not cause severe harm, like ChatGPT, is actually free and accessible for people who have the capability to actually open ChatGPT. And secondly, we shouldn't give people this dangerous research, quote unquote, that they mentioned in their first speaker speech. So moving on to my extension point is about government audits. So our alternative in this policy as opposition is that the government should have a final say on things that will affect the national security and be informed when developments in AI actually affect the nation. Then and only then will the government have the ability to interfere with the private sectors, and to ensure transparency, the government will perform audits. Judge, the proposition's policy of making all companies government-owned, government or quasi-owned, is a flawed system where the freedom of companies is infringed and their development are exploited for government use. This isn't a safeguarding proposal. This is a complete takeover on the government's part, leading to brain drain and the loss of jobs. So our alternative ensures that companies don't get too much power over the government and don't create a monopoly, rather than a simple takeover of freedom of the companies. So this alternative is win-win for both parties, keeping the companies in check, yet not acting like a dictatorship and infringing the free market and the people who work for these corporations, who are significant stakeholders caught in the crossfire of this insane policy. So, George, our exclusive benefits of this debate are to ensure a more effective development and prevention of a brain drain is used fully effectively in this alternative that we are mentioning, ensuring that AI won't disproportionately affect countries too much. So, George, AI will definitely change our futures, no questions asked. However, at least our method ensures that countries will grow at a steady pace instead of competent workers all moving to other global superpowers without this policy. This is why proposition has burdens that they would heavily risk polarizing the power levels in the future, where AI has a lot of influence, rather than accepting an alternative that still gives the government some influence over the decisions that actually affect the government's area of decision making in the first place. To summarize, my LO talked about points about development and slippery slope about brain drain, and I have added the point about government audits. So with these points, I'm proud to
I will go through a few things. First, some fundamental parts of this debate, and secondly, why we are winning on each of the clashes, and finally, the extra benefits that are only on our side. So first, some important things to know. Private companies prioritize profit, while governments prioritize the people. Yeah, so going by that point, we're gonna move on to the first clash here, and it's whether governments or companies are more suited to hold this technology. So they stated that, this is a government takeover, but before I talk about it, I'm going to just say AI is dangerous, and as proposition, we believe that governments are more suited to control AI. Opposition has stated that governments may misuse technology spy on people. However, and they also said governments can be swayed later. However, if governments may be swayed, then private companies are way more vulnerable. So, first, let's just say government-controlled AI can be designed with strict oversight and transparency measures to prevent some sort of misuse. But even if we take our opponent's best case scenario, which is that there definitely will be misuse of technology on the government's part, this harm is still symmetric, but it is way worse on their side. So why do I say this? Because in their world, there are private companies researching AI. However, the government of that country is still going to see that the AI is developed, is loyal to that country, and follows the country's interests. And another thing is that even if the government does not watch over or try to change like the private company's AI, now these private companies, as I said, they work for profit, right? Which means that sometimes they could give away the code to like a powerful AI because some other company offers them enough money to do so, while the government prioritizes like the public safety of the people of that country. So on this, what? Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, companies have one benefit that the governments don't, about the point of corruption, because companies have experience, and actually sharing this information with companies in the same nation is only beneficial.
I believe you thought that I was talking about sharing like code to the same country, but I'm talking about sharing the code to not just the people at the other companies in that country, but also to other countries like competitors or even like as you one of your speakers brought up Nazi Germany. If Nazi like companies, if Nazi Germany paid them enough, companies would pay them. Now, next, I want to elaborate on our second speaker talking about like people. So they said that underdeveloped country there would be a brain drain. However, that happens for their side as well. Because let's just say there's a company in let's say France, but then a company in the U.S. pays more for their employees, then people from that company in France would move to the U.S., causing a brain drain for just like they talked about. So the brain drain is like happens on both sides. And finally, our unique benefits is that number one, uh, there would be national security as I've stated, the government would try to put the interests of the people in mind and try to help the people of that country and keep them safe. And there would also be more equal access as then these governments they would make it more free and more accessible for everyone. So because of those reasons, please vote for
Imagine a world
proposition.
where AI massively benefits the economy and nobody has to work to have a luxurious lifestyle. While it might seem optimistic, AI technology will let us make the link between our current world and the world I described. However, the government side is suggesting we cannot embrace this world, and they are painting a world where dictatorships with immense power dictates the entire country and creates an oppressive government with frequent murdering of the people the dictator does not like. Ladies and gentlemen, the government is proposing a world where we should adopt the government. We should adopt fastest government and hinder commercial development. Moving on to address what the previous speakers have said. They have been their only notion and only standing guiding principle is that these public companies or government-driven companies are far more capable than these private companies. However, that is simply just true because of many reasons. Firstly, we have talked about the brain drain, but they have highlighted to us how it's a mutual harm. However, it's a mutual harm at the worst case because if you have mentioned about the example of other private companies having higher pay. However, in government, there's a lot of bureaucracy and corruption you have to consider. So the progress will always be slow, and the government does have a limited budget and often pay less than private companies. That is why people want to work in Apple instead of work for the government. Also, let me provide you an example. In Mexico, right after in the 1920s, they have developed a sewer system and and have supplied the citizens with clean water. However, after the Mexican Civil War, the government cut the budgets for the sewer system because they needed to pay their loans, and therefore, and a private company, Coca-Cola, took over and sold Coca-Cola to these Mexican citizens. Therefore, to this day, there's more people in Mexico have access to Coca-Cola than clean water. Therefore, their point about how the government is more capable than the private companies are completely false. Also, addressing the closer clashes, they have talked about how everyone should have equitable access to these AIs. However, they have just undermined the entirety of capitalism. These private companies also need to make money, and it is their primary purpose, allowing them to compete with each other and making a product have a certain price tag on them. Therefore, it's just a side effect of capitalism. And for the government, they are saying that just the government will supply everyone with this cheap AIs. While that might be true, the competition of these private companies allows more development. And I have already mentioned about the corruption and bureaucracy in the government, which is far more present than private companies. And they'll have to disprove the entire concept of capitalism to have win this debate and reclaim their point. we have talked about how these governments can have regular audits or checkups on these companies to enforce the boundaries of the safety and security of the citizens or the consumers using this AI product. And we have proved how we have overcome the problem of the safety and security and the privacy issues on our side. However, I like to pose the burden on them. Governments also can pose this safety and security issue and privacy issue on the citizens just as much as these private corporations can. Therefore, our point should prevail and their point fails. We have also talked about the competition that will make this economy prevail, and there will be more development with the AIs. And therefore, it is no more than crystal clear the emotion should
public
fall.
accessibility, whether we trust experienced yet untrustworthy companies or unskilled and trustworthy governments. From the start, we as the opposition have stood firmly from the side that practicality shapes our future the way we want it to, the side that makes sure all decisions are made by fully informed experts, and the side that keeps stability by preventing a massive brain drain. We have constantly emphasized the consequences of leaving governments in full control of people's freedom, and perhaps more importantly, a dangerous technology on par with nuclear weapons, and even provided an alternative that will keep the companies' alignments in check and that will prevent them from going power hungry and working solely for profit. So moving on to the burden of proof, the other team's BOP was to actually prove that governments would act transparently and effectively, and essentially that they're trustworthy. Yet they failed to prove this, as we, the opposition, showed that many governments were also accused of misusing technology for surveillance, censorship, and oppression and corruption, which at best turns into a mutual harm for both sides, and at worst turns into an exclusive harm, as our alternative was to give the government only limited power to keep the companies in check and still give them the full rights as the government, an agent designed to act in the best interest of the nation. That's their only role, and our alternative successfully confirmed that. On the other hand, our BOP was to show that the demerits of this policy and provide substantial proof of why companies wouldn't simply take over with their power, which we proved by showing the harmful effects of a marginalized brain drain and giving the companies all the power except for potentially harmful decisions. So moving on to world comparison, the proposition's best case scenario is a world where maintaining the guise of a thinly veiled peace where global superpowers are unable to use AI without receiving backlash from other global superpowers, largely similar to our current status quo, except with way more casualties and collateral damage if a war happens. Their worst case scenario, on the other hand, is a world consisting of around 10 countries that are technologically advanced, a 10 out of 10 stalemate, waiting to see what happens and who makes the first move. On the other hand, our best world is a peaceful world where using AI technology as a life convenience, where each country is capable of defending themselves and each keeping security and safety, while our worst case scenario would be AI taking jobs and being very expensive, which, to clarify, Judge, wouldn't be a dystopian movie where humans are merely the robot slaves, but a world split into two kinds of people, one that turns actually lazy and compliant, and one that takes the opportunity to pursue passion. So in conclusion, our case revolves around competent leaders in this world, while their case relies on less competent yet semi-trustworthy people to do the same. The outcome is clear, therefore the motion should fall. Thank you.
The road to hell is paved with goodness. We understand that efficiency might be a little bit low on our side of the house, but what opposition side is doing is definitely pulling the road towards danger. Extremely proud to propose just simply one thing in this speech, which is using Wang to prove why we have won the debate ultimately. But before moving on, one more thing that I want to emphasize here. Judge, from the motion, we can see that as long as it is a government-founded company, we can use it. Hence, we are not totally relying on the government. Moreover, only on our side of the house, we actually have the ability of adding a multiple companies best go together and adding the efficiency together and using them as a springboard towards having better AI. Right now, Judge, let's use some metrics to compare both sides of the houses. Let's first look at the probability part. Judge, options I have kept talking about unemployment rate. However, the probability of that actually happening at the end of the day is extremely low because just as what I have said in my second speech, these people can go to other companies as the demand is extremely high. But even in the best case scenario, where these people actually loses their job, we still win the debate because because the probability of AI going wrong is extremely high as as an unethical thing in the world, right? Hence, we win on probability. Moreover, on opposite side of the world, where even if AI is actually very strong, people are still losing their job because they have nothing to do, right? Hence, why should the government actually give them money? Hence, the harm on our opponent's side is actually symmetric at the end of the day. Let's look at the magnitude on both sides. On our side of the house, AI will affect the entire world because of over-reliance, and even just a small mistake will result in a big problem throughout the world. However, on the opposite side, the only thing that they might affect the world is on higher efficiency and less unemployment rate, right? All the companies care about profits. However, all the companies care about profit over the risk that they have, just as what have been proven before. However, safety definitely matters more than efficiency, and employment rate have already been proven symmetric in our opponent's best case scenario. Moreover, competition creates monopolies on our opponent's side, which we have clearly proven correct. In conclusion, Judge, since I've clearly proven that only our side of the house have a way of both efficient and safely creating AI, this is the clearest proposition ballot ever.